Authors Press.
Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. And on the line with us today, we have Erik D.J. O'Brien. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, Kur's Rage, Part 1 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga. You know, guys, and that is the first book in a 4-part series. Now, the other 3 are available now, and guys, get this, there's a 5th also on the horizon. Now, that one's still in creation, so you can't get the 5th one yet, but the first 4 are all available right now. Now, to purchase those books, you can go directly to his personal website if you want to gather everything that Erik has to offer. And that's erikdjobrien.com. Now, Erik is spelled with a K, not a C, and the Brian is spelled with an E, not an A. So let me spell it all out there for you. erikdjobrien.com. There, not only will you find more information on Brian himself, you'll find more information on all of his fantastic books, Kur's Rage and the other 3 books in the series, as well as find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing page. So one more time, that's erikdjobrien.com. You know, and I will say, Erik was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business, Authors Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact Authors Press. And you can find out more information on them at authorspress.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Erik, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
Hi, Benji. I'm great. I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, listen, the honor is all ours, okay?
Yeah.
And we're very much looking forward to this. Now, Erik, I know we have so much information to cover, but before we go into the book, let's hold off slightly. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Norwell, Massachusetts. I was born in Utah, but my parents settled in Norwell. I attended the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and later in 1990, when things started to go south in the Persian Gulf, I enlisted in the Army. I served as a supply specialist and corporal for the 3rd Ranger Battalion, and as a supply sergeant for a unit called Delta 269 Armor, which was a tank unit, before being honorably discharged in 1994. When I got home, I continued my education at Emerson College, and I worked as a carpet installer, and I did many other odd jobs. More recently, I've been a machinist, and I currently work as a greenskeeper at a golf course here in Massachusetts called Ponkapaug Golf Course. I began writing Kur's Rage while I served in the Army, and I continue to work on sequels to it to this day.
Erik, without further ado, Kur's Rage. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, Kur's Rage is an epic fantasy action-adventure story. It begins my 4-part series. The 2 parallel storylines that converge in the story, the hero storyline and the villains, if you will. The story begins in a small town called Waysboro, in the kingdom of Safe Haven on a planet called Tempest in the Fornax galaxy. It's a true galaxy far away. My narrator, an old gnome by the name of Kalor Starseeker, tells his tale to 3 young soldiers on leave, as Kalor recalls it. The tale of the great dragons of old, of goblins and elves and men, and of the mighty red orcan tribes of the north. Then he begins the story by telling them of one of his first great battles that he fought in against the jackals, who are tall humanoid creatures with the heads of hyenas and human-like hands. The aftermath of that battle, his closest friends decide to reunite after their course of duty in search of new adventures, and that's where Kalor's story leads them to next. One by one, Kalor introduces the soldiers to all of his friends. Carmen, a female gallant, Kurt Kegporter, a stalwart dwarf, as well as Darcy and Leander, who are half elves from across the sea. A chance encounter with a mysterious wizard on the night of their reunion begins their grand adventure, a scouting mission for the king himself. With newfound purpose, they embark on their journey, meeting new friends along the way, and gaining a new ally in Ranger Battalion. Tarek leads them north, into the foreboding northern reaches, where danger could well await them at every turn. Reaching the promontory, they look down upon the surrounding lands and discover that Nordtown Village, one of the king's northernmost towns, is besieged. Fleeing soldiers and refugees inform them that an army of orcs has sacked the city and recommend that they too flee for their lives. Of course, Carmen and her friends have no intention of turning back at this point, and they arrive in Nordtown in the aftermath. Orcs have withdrawn to what is left of Nordtown's smoldering ruins. Searching for survivors, they discover the elf, Talent Rayland, the sole survivor, who retells his own tale of survival and of the capture of his wife, whom he will stop at nothing to rescue. The orcs' own motivation comes into question for Carmen and her band at this time, and they realize that they were seeking someone or some object of immense importance. Erik the Ranger continues to lead them all north in pursuit of the orc army. Along the way, they have their first encounter with the orcs, and a great struggle ensues. Thanks to the efforts of the young Kavon, who's been part of Carmen's band, they begin to discover what exactly the orcs commander is searching for, an artifact of untold power. That artifact turns out to be the Duaredheim Staff, the object of the quest of the series, a mighty weapon, divided into pieces and hidden in the ancient past, in the hopes that it would never be wielded again. After they have their first battle with the orcs, they find Cirrus, an old witch who's been killed by the orcs. He was a protector of an ancient staff called the Seeker of the Staff, which is an ornate magical weapon that allows them to locate, or will allow them to locate the rest of the components of the Duaredheim Staff, this artifact that their nemesis, who they haven't met yet, is looking for. So the story continues. Soon after, the band comes upon the scene of another titanic battle, where the forces of Prince Goran's dwarves and a great host of red orcs have met in battle. Kirk Headquarter, the dwarf in the group, is humbled and filled with sorrow after witnessing all of his fallen brothers, and he then vows to avenge them. Not to give away too much, but suffice it to say that their quest sweeps them all up after that. Their ensuing adventures come test their mettle and bind them like only the most harrowing of challenges can. So that's how Curse Rage starts out, and the actions of their villains, if you will, the antagonists of the book, are the second parallel storyline that the gnome leads his readers through. And they all come to converge towards the end of Curse Rage and into the second book, The Drums of Doom.
I'm curious, talk to us now, because the next place that I wanted to go was into the concept of inspiration. Now, Erik, as you started the interview by saying, you come from a very eclectic background, right? Writing was not one of the things that you had mentioned. So I'm curious, really, what inspired you to embark upon a creative journey and become a writer?
Well, I did some writing in college, but it wasn't my major. It was a science major in college. My father really wanted me to be a scientist, of some sort, an engineer, but that wasn't really where my heart lied. And in the Army, when it was downtime, I always kept a notebook, a sketchbook in my rucksack, and whenever we had time, I would just write about whatever was happening, random stories. But I also love books, fantasy and science fiction stories from my earliest youth, where I can remember reading. And that just sort of got me into the genre of fantasy, and that's sort of where my imagination has come to rest. But to expand on that, when I was a kid in middle school, I was bullied really badly, to the point where I was an outcast of a sort, and I was sad and afraid to go to school every day. And those fantasy books that I read were part of a collection that my father had when he was young, that he had stored in an old box. And once I read my first Jules Verne and Heinlein books and whatnot, I was hooked on the genre forever. So those stories really helped to save my life, I think, because I was a very depressed kid at the time. And between that and the martial arts that I ended up learning later in life, those two things put me on a good path and got me past my difficulties, if you will.
Here on the line with Erik D.J. O'Brien. We're discussing his fantastic book, Kerr's Rage. Now remember, that's the first one in a 4-part series, all of which are available right now, and a 5th still on the horizon. And they all can be purchased directly through his personal site, erikdjobrien.com. You know, Erik, next area that I'd love to go into. You know, this is clearly a fictional narrative, but there are sometimes a lot of research that gets conducted even with fictional narratives, right? Depending on the place that you're putting it in, the characters that you're creating, or what have you, or even maybe just constructing a narrative itself. Talk to our listening audience, Erik. What type of research did you do in preparation for these books?
Sure. Well, the series is based in a Dungeons and Dragons sort of world. Being the creator Gary Gygax, who created Dungeons and Dragons, created a very detailed world, detailed characters that he took from all aspects of the world itself, mythology, various areas of the world inspired him, myths about trolls and giants and all that. And basically that was one area of research. I do a lot of stuff with languages. I have Irish English dictionaries, Vietnamese and Chinese dictionaries that I tap into for using to make unique names. I studied a lot about nautical terms, ocean navigation, so that when I portrayed the sailing and any of the naval adventures, that I was doing it in the correct manner, with the correct terminology. In terms of the medieval stuff, the use of the weaponry, the armor, I try to be authentic as I can. It is a fantasy world, but basically it's also a medieval era type of world, chainmail and axes and swords and that sort of thing. So I try to be straight and correct with the terminology there as well. So that's basically the research I went into in terms of the technical aspects of the book. The rest of it is just sort of my imaginary narrative and a logical plot line. Helped me to put it all together. Some of the story is derived from Dungeons & Dragons campaign that I ran for years, and some of the characters have the names that are based on characters that my players used and gave me permission to use in my books. So I tried to capture their voices, their actions in the book, and it really created a unique story in the end. At first I wasn't considering that it would be a book at all, but as things started coming together, I realized that I did have something special, and that's when I really got into finalizing the form that Kerr's Rage is in now.
Erik, as we start to tie up this wonderful interview, please talk to us about one of the follow-ups that you are either still working on now or have completed already.
Well, I can tell you, in the Drums of Doom Part 2 of the series, the characters have acquired one of the pieces of the Duaredheim staff, and they have this flotating device. And they decide that they're going to attempt to thwart the desires of their nemesis. But they try to acquire the staff before he does. And it leads them on this really unbelievable quest under earth, if you will, through vast labyrinths of tunnels. And they encounter all kinds of creatures and beasts that they have to overcome to fulfill their quest. After all that, after so much hardship, they eventually get captured by their nemesis at the end of part 2, and their fate, we'll have to let the reader find out their fate as he ends up trying to do away with them in the gladiatorial arena. And the book really heats up. In part 2, the story, characters are so into the quest, and they're so committed, but they meet with so much disaster, so much hardship, that I think it really will captivate anybody who reads it. So I think book 2, Cur's Rage and the whole series could really capture the reader's imagination, should make them want to buy the next book, and I really think they'll enjoy it. I think people will not regret purchasing any of my books. I think they'll get hours of enjoyment out of each one.
I completely can agree with just what you've said to us so far about the books and the research that I've done. Guys, these books are fantastic. Again, something taken directly out of a Hollywood film, very popular in today's pop culture, mainstream culture, but also a fun journey, right? Action-packed, really a page-turner. You're not going to want to put it down. Do yourself a favor. I know you're all already there, but I'm going to say it for you one more time just to re-impress it. Here on the line with Erik D.J. O'Brien. We just finished discussing his first book in a 4-part series, Cur's Rage. The other 3, again, are available and ready for purchase right now, and then there's a 5th still in creation that will be on the horizon and released very shortly. All of which are available for purchase directly through his personal site, erikdjobrien.com. You surely will not be disappointed. Get lost in the journey, and really a fun, entertaining ride for yourself, but a wonderful gift for you to get for someone else. Erik, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you for having me, Benji. Absolute honor to be here. Thank you so much.